Hi St George's, here is your next homeschool history quiz. So this week on Tuesday we celebrated a special day. I wonder if any of you knew what it was on Tuesday. So it's the 12th of May, and on the 12th of May we celebrate International Nurses Day. I think there was a lot about it in the news this week because of everything the nurses are doing to help us in the middle of coronavirus. But it happens every year. And every year on the 12th of May, we celebrate nurses. Now, I wonder if you know the reason that they've picked the 12th of May every year. Well, here is the reason. So, on the 12th of May, it's the day Florence Nightingale was born. That was her birthday. And this year, it was extra special this year because she was born 200 years ago this year on the 12th of May. So there would have been lots and lots of celebrations planned, but some of those didn't happen because everybody's in lockdown at the minute. But we still celebrate every year International Nurses Day. But I don't want to tell you about Florence Nightingale because I think everybody knows a lot about Florence Nightingale. But I do want to tell you about another nurse who was around at the same time as Florence Nightingale. I wonder if any of you can guess who that might be. Some of you will have learnt all about her in school. But the person I want to talk to you about today is Mary Seacole. Often she was known as Mother Seacole. But Mary Seacole was born in 1805 in Kingston, Jamaica. Now, in Jamaica at that time, most Black people would have been slaves. But Mary Seacole wasn't. She was born free, and her mum was a Jamaican lady who was a healer and what they call a doctress. That was like a lady doctor. And her father was a Scottish soldier who fought in the British Army. And Mary's mum had a hotel. It was actually one of the top hotels in Kingston at the time. And so she learnt a lot from her mum about how to run a hotel, how to help to look after people. And because her mum was a healer, she also learnt lots about medicines and remedies. So her mum looked a lot at her African and Caribbean heritage, and she used a lot of remedies from her culture. And Mary helped her mum lots, so she learned all about this. And then she travelled around the world and set up hotels in some places and helped treat people with diseases back in those days. So she set up a hotel in Panama, which is in Central America, and she was helping there with people who had cholera. Now, cholera is a really nasty disease. It's a bit like sickness and diarrhea, but really nasty, and lots of people die from cholera. But Mary Seacole had some great remedies for cholera that helped people to get better. But interestingly, even though she was helping everybody to get better, there was still a lot of racism because of the colour of her skin. So Mary was really determined that she wanted things to be fair and equal. But unfortunately, they weren't always fair and equal. And she left Panama. And then in 1854, a war took place. Now, you might have heard of this war. It was called the Crimean War. And if you can see on the map here, the war was fought between Russia, which is at the top, and Turkey, which is at the bottom. And the Crimea is this little bit here where you can see something called Balaclava and Sevastopol. They're two places in the Crimea. That's where most of the fighting took place. But Britain and France joined in with the war to help Turkey to fight against Russia. So lots of British soldiers went over to help to fight. And Mary Seacole wanted to volunteer to help because she was a nurse. So she went to the British authorities and said, I would like to help out in the hospitals in the Crimea with the soldiers who have been injured. And they didn't want her. Now, they said it was because there was no space, but then they did say that they wouldn't take her anyway. And again, this was probably because of the colour of her skin. But Mary Seacole was an independent woman, and she decided, you know what, I'm going to travel there myself and I will help the soldiers myself. So she set off and travelled to the Crimea. But on the way, she stopped at Florence Nightingale's hospital. Now, Florence Nightingale's hospital was in Turkey. You might be able to see on the map there a little spot, and it says Scutari. And that's where Florence Nightingale's hospital was. Now, if you imagine the fighting was happening in Sevastopol and Balaclava, you can see where they are. The injured soldiers, if they had to get to Florence Nightingale's hospital, it was nearly 4 days travelling. And some of them were too poorly to travel that far. So it wasn't a great place to have the hospital. So Mary Seacole decided she was going to set up a hospital right where the fighting was. So her hotel that she set up was only 2 miles away from the fighting in the Crimea. Now, what she did, she set up something called the British Hotel. And the British Hotel was a restaurant, and it was a store, a shop, so that you could buy things, and it was a hotel. And what Mary did, she used the money from the restaurant and the shop and the hotel to pay for the medicines and the food to help the injured soldiers. And you can see there, she's helping somebody, she's nursing somebody back to health who's been fighting in the war. But at the end of the war, Mary was bankrupt. That means she had no money left. Because she'd bought things for the shop and the restaurant and then she couldn't sell them after the war, she ended up with no money. So she went back to England really poor, and she had to live in a rented house, and she didn't have much money at all. But the British soldiers were really grateful for everything she'd done for them. So they made sure that they did like a benefit event. So over 80,000 people came together to celebrate Mary Seacole and to raise some money for her. And even the Queen, now the Queen at the time, I wonder if you know who the Queen was in 1856. It was Queen Victoria. So Queen Victoria herself gave some money towards Mary Seacole's charitable gala. She gave £50. Now, back in those days, £50 was about £4,000 now. So the Queen herself gave money to Mary Seacole. And Mary Seacole also got 4 medals for her services during the Crimean War. Here's some pictures of Mary Seacole a bit later in life. One of them is a photograph, so we definitely know that's what she looked like. And the other one is a painting that somebody's done of Mother Seacole. The other thing Mary Seacole did, which was really quite unusual in those days, was travel the world by herself. And often women wouldn't travel on their own in those days. But as well as traveling on her own, she wrote an autobiography. So she wrote a book herself about herself and about her adventures and her travels. And that's how we know so much about her, because we can read her autobiography. And actually, it's thought that she's possibly the first free Black woman in the British Empire to write an autobiography. And then, sadly, what happened, after her death, she was forgotten about. And not a lot of people knew anything about her. And then in 1980, which isn't that long ago, it's about 40 years ago, in 1980, some historians discovered her story again and started to tell people all about Mary Seacole. And then not that long ago, in the 2000s, people started saying, hang on a minute, we need a statue for Mary Seacole. We need to remember Mary Seacole. She was really important. And they did some fundraising. And in 2016, there was this beautiful statue that was erected to remember Mary Seacole. This statue is actually not far from us. It's just at St Thomas's Hospital down the road in Lambeth. And that was unveiled in 2016. So maybe next time you're passing on the bus, you can have a look and see if you can see it. It's also thought that this is the first ever statue in the UK to honour a Black woman, which is great news. So that is Mary Seacole. I wonder if you've been listening and if you can do the quiz. So 5 questions again. Where was Mary Seacole born? Mary set up a hospital to help soldiers in which war? What was the name of Mary's hotel? How much money did Queen Victoria donate to Mary? And where is the statue of Mary Seacole? They're quite easy today. But if you want to pause, you can pause it now and have a think about the answers. And if not, I'm going to share the answers now. So, where was she born? Kingston, Jamaica. What was the war that she helped in? It was the Crimean War. What was the name of Mary's hotel? It was called the British Hotel. How much money did Queen Victoria donate to Mary? £50. I wonder if you can remember how much I said that would be if it was today. And where is the statue of Mary Seacole? St Thomas's Hospital here in London. So if you want to know any more about both of these nurses, I would recommend Horrible Histories, as I always do, because it's my favourite programme. But there are some great songs about Mary Seacole and about Florence Nightingale. So if you want to do any more research, you can go online, and there's lots about both of these nurses. And it's great now that we remember them both, and we remember both Mary Seacole and Florence Nightingale. So well done if you got them all right, and I will be back next week with another history quiz. Take care, see you soon. Bye.